So meanwhile, back at the Werewolf Bar. Hi everybody, I'm Brian Easton, author of the Autobiography of a Werewolf Hunter series, and this is what we call Whiskey with the Werewolf Hunter. First, the whiskey, our creature of the night. Now this comes to us from Old Camp, which is a collaboration between country music stars Jason Aldean and the Florida Georgia line, and this is their latest celebrity whiskey, a straight bourbon called Wolf Moon. Okay, so when I saw this, naturally I had to bring it back to the Werewolf Bar based on the name alone, right? I mean, you got some nice silver lettering here. You've got kind of like a black moon thing going on behind that, and on the back you've got a wolf's head howling at the moon. Plus, I've had Old Camp whiskey before and enjoyed it pretty well, so I figured why not. Now, as you can see, this is not the first time that this bottle has been tapped. After all, I have been, like the rest of you, in quarantine. So just because I've been drinking it, though, doesn't mean I've been drinking it straight. Actually, in my opinion, this is not a very good sipping whiskey. I've been pouring it with sweet tea or lemonade or, cola, something like that. Like I said, as a sipping whiskey, it just doesn't have what I'm looking for in a bourbon. And to tell you the truth, the nose on the thing is pretty harsh. As far as I'm concerned, and it just hits all the wrong notes with me. So I'll be pouring this into some Coke tonight, and this may be the only time you see me do this on the show. To you. Ain't nothing wrong with that. So speaking of things that I don't really care for, I was rewatching the original Underworld movie the other night. Now, it's not that I don't like the movie itself with its whole vampires versus werewolf premise, except in the Underworld, they don't call them werewolves, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Anyway, I never really hated that movie as much as a lot of people thought that I would. I remember my brother called me up the day it came out, and he went and saw it, and as did I. We were in different towns, and he called me up and he says, "Man, I just want to apologize for that movie for you. The whole time I was watching it, I'm thinking, oh man, Brian's hating this." But I really didn't. I mean, it's got its flaws, of course, but the movie, and in fact, the whole Underworld franchise itself, I found to be fairly entertaining. I think it was like 4 or 5 movies. Anyway, they don't use the word werewolf, at least in the initial couple of movies, I don't think. They use the word lichen. Now, lichen, first time I heard it, I was like, what? It just hit me wrong. What's that supposed to be? I mean, I know where they get it from, right? Lichen, lycanthrope. It's a new way to say werewolf. And but it just didn't really hit me just right when I heard it. And then, of course, now the word has found its way into our vernacular, and it's become interchangeable with the word werewolf. So my initial reaction to this, like I said, it was pretty much knee jerk. I didn't care for it, and I thought, well, why? Why don't I like it? Well, it sounds made up, right? Well, it is made up. It's a fabricated word. Made for the movie, made for what I thought, at the time, some upstart sci-fi horror flick, which is fine within the confines of the movie franchise and with its own mythology. But to make it synonymous with the word werewolf, to make it synonymous with the creature, the beast itself, I don't know. I just didn't care for it. And somewhere out there I can hear somebody saying, "Okay, boomer." And maybe you're right. Maybe I'm just a cranky old wolfhound set in his ways. And it crossed my mind that this might be the case. So I started thinking about Hollywood in general and its impact on the horror werewolves specifically. And you probably know where I'm going with this. And it's true that a good chunk of our lycanthropic lexicon comes from Hollywood. Kurt Siodmak, who wrote the screenplay for The Wolfman in 1941, invented the gypsy proverb about wolfsbane and the autumn moon is bright and all that. Some say he invented the whole silver bullet thing as a plot device, though there's evidence to the contrary for that. The idea of turning another werewolf with a bite. These have largely become Hollywood staples that have been accepted as virtual werewolf canon. So I guess I don't have any legitimate argument as to why I shouldn't like the word lichen, but I'm still not gonna. So tonight here at the Werewolf Bar, we are pleased to have Dr. T. Broussard back with us. If you haven't seen the previous episodes, I am happy to reintroduce him to you. Dr. Broussard is a proper Cajun from southern Louisiana. He is a 30-year expert in the occult arts and sciences, a prolific author, and he has almost a dozen titles to his name. And he's also has risen above the physical challenges that he has to be an award-winning martial arts innovator and instructor. Now, if you have read The Lineage, which is the third book in the original trilogy, you'll know that I cover the 7 reasons why werewolves kill. And this is based on a late medieval sermon from 1508 by Dr. Johann Geiler. According to this sermon, the 7 reasons werewolves kill can be broken down as follows. Hunger, savagery, old age, experience, madness, God, or the devil, and then God. Okay? And my treatment of that sermon in the book, of course, is fictitious, but the sermon itself is not. And neither is what the doc's about to tell you. So with that, here's a great guy with an encyclopedic knowledge of occult tradition and folklore, Dr. Broussard.
This is Dr. T. Broussard speaking as part of Whiskey with the Werewolf Hunter, which is Brian P. Easton's internet show about his werewolf series. Tonight, I will be talking about an actual document that he references in the series referring to the 7 reasons why a werewolf kills, which is included in the Book of Werewolves, which is very good source text on lycanthropy, as well as other books on the occult in certain circles. The reason why there are 7 reasons why werewolf kills is very obvious from an occult point of view. There are 7 planets in the classical system of cosmology used by many occult systems. Until the mid-20th century, there are 7 spheres of reality in those systems. There are 7 virtues, 7 deadly sins, going back to the 7 steps of the ladder of heaven, the 7 heavens, and the 7 hells. So, astrologically speaking, when a werewolf is under the influence of the moon, it is also under the influence of the planet connected to the sign that the moon is in. So, if the full moon is in, say, Scorpio with the planet Saturn in a particular place, the motivation to kill is going to be more of a physical hunger, a regular need to feed, because a werewolf in beast form has a need to feed to sustain its altered metabolism, the same way you would need to eat in order to stay alive. However, if the moon brings about the change under the influence of, say, Venus, the hunger to kill might be accompanied or be influenced by things like lust, the need to breathe, the need to exert one's desire on someone else. In fact, many early werewolf tales involve sensuality being coupled with the kill. In the case of the Beast of Shevardal, there are clear indications of the attacks being somewhat sexual in nature, because they were not killed by an animal would. An animal goes for the stomach, an animal goes for the organs, things like that, goes for the meat. In the case of the Beast of Shevardal, most of the attacks were around the neck and so forth. And very little of the meat was taken. Most of the victims were female. To me, as an occultist, this would indicate a werewolf that changed under the particular influence of the moon and Venus. Now, in the case of a planet like Mars, the influence would be responding to a threat with a struggle for power within what Brian P. Easton calls the lineage. Because the werewolf in beast form represents, in a sense, chaos made flesh, the blending of man and beast, the retroversion of the processes of evolution, things like that. The planet that would influence things like divine intervention, basically a power, a god, and so forth, co-opting the agency of a werewolf for its own purpose, which is actually shown in several storylines of Dark Shadows, would fall under the planet Uranus, or Uranus, because astrologically that's the planet of rebellion. So that planet would influence the moon, that would turn the wolf against its own nature. And since the wolf is all about chaos, freedom, and so forth, by nature, the opposite, or the rebellion to its nature, would be adherence to a quote-unquote higher power. Now, not very many people realize this, but these 7 reasons, these 7 influences that alter the hunger of a werewolf can be related to the 7 heads of the dragon, the 7 heads of the devil, if you prefer. And they can then be blocked, metaphorically or occultly, through the occult, by application of things like the 7 seals in Revelation that they also resonate with. And this is why you often find different saints, in groups of 7, because these powers counter the ones represented by the ones that influence the werewolf. Now, stepping outside of the biblical narrative, you could see these 7 reasons as the influence of different gods that you could easily compare Zeus to Jupiter and Hades to Saturn and things like that. So again, around the world you have these same influences that alter or detail the effect of the moon on the person in the werewolf state. Now, these same influences have a great deal to do with the occult or magic involved in the doing of lycanthropy. Someone who seeks to become a werewolf because of the will simply to do so would perform his ritual under a specific moon phase, with reference to Mars. Someone that sought the wolf state to feed his family would do the same under Saturn, and so on and so forth. These considerations go to show that these persons that use this information were applying psychology, biology, and theology through symbolic reference. We associate violence with Mars because of events that happened when Mars was in a particular position in the night sky. We associate lunacy with the moon, no pun intended, because when the moon is full, and doctors and nurses and cops will tell you this, more crazies come out. We associate the moon with transformation because under the moonlight, the shadows of the night can make people appear to be younger than they are, and under the moon, you're able to see more of what goes on at night, although what you see is not always clear, giving the impression of transformation. Now, occultists through the centuries have learned to use things like symbols of astrological phenomena to symbolize or stand in for the actual astrological influence. Now, in the same way that an occultist would make a talisman of Mars and so forth to control its transformation, someone else could make one that would counter a particular werewolf's cycle, and each werewolf has a cycle. That's why on the old Werewolf series you would hear the phrase, "the cycle has begun," because each werewolf has a cycle. Ryan P. Easton beautifully works out the influence of the lunar tide on his understanding of the wolf, the werewolf. His reference to the 7 reasons why a werewolf kills implies to me an unconscious awareness of the other astrological influences involved in the motivations for transformation. Now, very important, in the lore of the werewolf, we essentially have 2 kinds of werewolf. 3, if you count those who are transformed by the bite. But leaving out the bitten for a time, the 2 kinds of werewolf are those who are bitten, those who are born to that state of being, and those who seek it through occult ritual. Those who seek it through occult ritual are applying lycanthropy as a magical art. It is a form of witchcraft. That's why in France, where my ancestors are from, you find not so many witch trials, but you do find werewolf trials, because werewolfery, as the discipline was and is known in some circles, was a particular form of witchcraft or sorcery in the area of France. And it was big there. And the reason for that is very simple. If you're hungry and poor, and you're rejected by society, or you're angry, you're greedy enough, you will use the means available to avail yourself of what hard work, or what you think is hard work, is not getting you. As I believe I have said once before in one of these episodes, better fed than dead. Someone seeking the lycanthropic state will need to know what influences are best, will need to know what herbs relate to certain states, so that he'll know what to go out and get in the woods to make his potion or salve, what have you, to make his transformation possible. The reason why a lot of ancients used the night sky to symbolize their knowledge is because the night sky, with its set cycles and observable influences on the earth, is a permanent repository for certain knowledge. No matter what the church burned, no matter what the church forbid, people could look up at the night sky and say, well, I've heard this story that when the moon is in the 5th house and this flower grows at this hour, I can go out, pick this flower, and eat it, and after that I will transform or acquire this ability. In other words, it's a way of preserving knowledge. These states that we now think of as werewolfery or vampirism, which is another potentially magical art, they were used as part of religion before they became known as diabolical. And with the wolf, you find wolf warrior societies, you find special forces, essentially, using the same methodologies and the same rituals, the same folklore, to become the wolfman in order to be better warriors. Not unlike the bear shirts, you also had the Ulfidnar, the wolf warriors. They were kind of like the Navy SEALs versus the berserkers that were like your regular Marines. Yeah. And overall, understanding the night sky and what goes into it with regard to the lunar cycle helped people reflect on what was going on inside themselves. If you understand what's going on inside you reflected outward on the night sky, you can choose what you focus on. And like the Bible says, for those who believe in it, as a man thinketh, so is he. If you believe in these influences, if you believe in the effects of these stellar energies and so forth that are influenced in the night sky, what you believe, your mind brings about in terms of sensation in your body gives you an altered perception, which brings about the perception of a transformation. Think about this. When a very famous werewolf, Pierce Tube, who was mentioned by Brian in his series, was found before he was brought down, at first the people that saw him saw a wolf. They didn't see a man acting like a wolf. The report is they saw a wolf. Now, you could say, well, they were mistaken, but the more important part is, because Stube saw himself as a wolf and acted as a wolf, and his will was strong enough, those that saw him as a wolf. He was a wolf to them, and they dealt with him as such. It is important to understand that when you are dealing with matters of horror, the fear is not so much the monster in the film or book, because we can stop the film, we can put the book down. The real horror is what these things evoke from within us. And when the would-be werewolf uses the knowledge to become such, or to bring about change, he is evoking from within himself or herself the reality of his own beast, his own bestial nature. And in certain parts of Europe and other parts of the world, that bestial nature is best understood as wolf. It isn't actually a wolf, such as we find in nature, but it is the archetype, the imprint of a wolf as we understand it, as that individual understands it. That way, the wolf within each person is different. No two are alike. This has been a pleasure for me, and I hope to do it again soon. I want to thank Brian P. Easton for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all once again, and keep an eye out for the moon.
Thank you, Doc, for that another insightful analysis into some of the vagaries of the werewolf and its relationship with the occult sciences. Interesting, as always. You know, when I was writing the lineage, I wanted to incorporate the 7 reasons werewolves kill. I started trying to draw parallels between them and the reasons why humans kill. Law enforcement has a list of these reasons that they call motives. And although they may be, well, the motives for murder vary, or the motives for homicide, I should say, vary from place to place, source to source, depending on who you're talking to. But the basic list runs something like this: profit, which would be the professional hit or maybe a robbery gone wrong; passion, the heat of the moment, crime of passion; hatred, enough said on that. I don't think that needs any explanation. Power or prestige, like maybe a gang initiation; revenge, good old-fashioned vengeance; thrill, when you're in it just for the adrenaline rush; fear, perhaps in cases like self-defense; compassion, if we're talking about something like euthanasia; ritual, as in sacrifice of the victim to powers real or imagined. And there's lots of room for overlap here, and for other motives that might lie in between. All of these motives are for homicide, but not all of them concern themselves with murder, which is considered, unjustified homicide in the eyes of the law. Execution is state-sanctioned homicide. So might be a soldier killing an enemy combatant. Manslaughter is homicide, but it's not premeditated, and so it doesn't really have a motive. I'm not getting into a criminal justice presentation here, and if I am, I don't mean to. I'm not even really trying to make a point. I'm just saying I wanted to contrast that the werewolves have 7 reasons and men have 9 plus, or mankind has 9 plus. In the book, Alaric, who is the king shit werewolf, acknowledges this discrepancy at the end of the book and kind of calls humanity on the carpet for needing to categorize their urge to kill. Well, that's going to do it for me this evening. Before we get out of here, be sure to mash that subscribe button on the bottom part of your screen and drop me a line if you want. Brian at werewolfhunter.com. Another big thank you to Dr. T. Broussard for being with us this evening, and thanks to you for joining us as well. Be sure to check back with us again next time. We'll have Derek Tex Grebner with us again. He's going to share some of his headcanon on the series, as well as his expertise on werewolf weaponry and other tools of the trade. Till then, happy hunting and mind the moon.